everyone, my name is Eric Hopkins, aka Joe, and welcome back to the Dragon's Den. Thank you to everybody for all your patience out there. I know this has been a long week on the channel here without any videos. I took some time off to go spend some time with family following the 4th of July week. So thank you very much for your patience. But let's get into the WWE recap for this week. Coming at you a few days later here, but I wanted to get into it so we all caught up here with everything going on in WWE. Smackdown last week wasn't a real big noteworthy show, all things considered, but there were a few things I wanted to talk about going into WWE Money in the Bank. Of course, we got new WWE Tag Team Champions, DIY. Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano defeated Austin Theory and Grayson Waller, A-Town Down Under, as they've been kind of teasing a bit of a breakup there between A-Town Down Under, and that could potentially end up leading more to a feud between those two going down the line. But this was inevitable, in my opinion. DIY is one of the best tag teams on the WWE roster, and in my opinion, definitely one of the better tag teams coming out of NXT, no doubt about it. So I was happy to see this, and I loved how the finish also kind of mirrored their finishes in NXT when they were wrestling FTR. And I thought that was really cool how they did that with the double tap out with the submission. So that was absolutely great. These guys are going to do great things for the tag team division on SmackDown. So all things considered, I think this was the right call, no doubt about it. Can't wait to see what these two guys do with the championships. And if you've not had a chance to check out these two guys and some of their social media posts of Tommaso Ciampa trying to RKO Randy Orton out of nowhere and constantly getting thwarted, it's absolutely hilarious. So if you've not checked that out online, I highly recommend that as well. But looking forward to see what they do with this on SmackDown for sure. We also had some noteworthy things. Just not really a whole lot going on this week between LA Knight and Logan Paul. However, LA Knight keeps dropping hints that we're going to be getting a Logan Paul feud coming down the line here, most likely for the WWE United States Championship, probably at SummerSlam this year. So keep an eye out for that. They're still dropping hints to that over on SmackDown as well. Now, also on SmackDown, we've got the feud between Bayley and Nia Jax starting to heat up a little bit as well. Bayley is definitely going to be defending her title against Nia Jax at SummerSlam after Bayley defeated Piper Niven this last week. Sounds like that's going to be happening, no doubt about it. So it's all but signed and sealed and delivered for SummerSlam. So yeah, we're going to get these two on a collision course coming up here in August. So yeah, I think I'm going to take Bayley probably to win this match because, in my opinion, I feel like Bayley needs to have a little bit longer of a championship reign here. However, I wouldn't be surprised if Nia Jax does win the title here because she's been on a dominant streak here after winning the Queen of the Ring tournament and also all that sort of good stuff. So definitely good things coming down the line here for these two ladies. And I think what they're doing with the ladies over there on SmackDown has been a really good thing. They've been doing a lot of cool stuff with some of the storyline feuds that they've got going on, kind of tying everything together. So I think it's really been fun to watch. So looking forward to this match at SummerSlam. Hopefully it ends up being a good one. Getting into some of my thoughts on the WWE Money in the Bank PLE that they had following the 4th of July holiday this week. We had Trish Stratus, who was Canada's own, kind of making her return to the company a little bit here, being a host for the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. So yes, absolutely looking great and totally stratified over here. Just going to say that. The show kicked off with the men's Money in the Bank match, and of course, all these superstars I thought did a great job with this match. It was a good match to open up the pay-per-view, but in the end, Drew McIntyre wins the briefcase here. There's some people who are arguing that maybe, well, Jey Uso would have maybe been a better candidate here, or maybe somebody else, maybe like an LA Knight or something to that effect, to kind of further their push that they've been getting as well. But at the same time, I think LA Knight's got other plans with Logan Paul, and Jey Uso is probably eventually going to be end up with the Bloodline storyline again, probably by the end of this year, in my opinion. Although he'll be more of a babyface in that regard because he's getting over himself. However, he would have been the better choice, in my opinion, for the briefcase. I just feel like they kind of got this thing going on in WWE lately, and this was a problem under Vince McMahon too, that one of the briefcase winners, whether it be the woman or the man, they don't want to have two people holding briefcases all year long. So it's like they want to just have one person win it, and then that person will either cash in that night or relatively soon thereafter, and then lose their opportunity or win the belt or whatever it might be, but they only have one person carrying the briefcase. So if that's the case, if you don't want to go along with the whole briefcase stipulation, maybe you need to not do the briefcase every single year and don't do the Money in the Bank match every single year. I know it's a big seller when it comes to their pay-per-views, but at the same time, it just makes no sense to have Drew McIntyre, in this case, have the briefcase, cash in this night, and then lose, and then it just feels like you just don't want to have the burden of the briefcase on the winner. So if you don't want to book it, I just feel like it shouldn't be on the yearly pay-per-view and only do it every now and then when it calls for it. Sometimes, I've always been a critic of having stipulation pay-per-views like Hell in a Cell. Like, just because Hell in a Cell's coming up, we have to have the Hell in a Cell match, even though some feuds are not worthy of the Hell in a Cell payoff. In this case, it's kind of the same thing. It's a stipulation match, but if you don't want to actually book the Money in the Bank briefcase winner to hold on to the briefcase, maybe you shouldn't be booking the particular stipulation at the time. However, I am glad to see that the woman's Money in the Bank winner is probably going to go on to hold that briefcase for a while. It just feels like that WWE's doing this thing where they get a little skittish when it comes to the actual stipulation, and I wish they kind of not do that. But and if you're going to do it, just go for it. You know what I mean? Give it to Jey Uso, give it to somebody else. But in this case, they gave it to Drew McIntyre, and we'll see how that goes by the end of the show. Following this, we had an unexpected appearance. This show has a few surprises and twists on it. We got the appearance of John Cena, who was brought out by Trish Stratus here, and he had a new towel that said, "The last time is now." So, yeah, he pretty much cut to the chase pretty quickly here, and he announced his retirement from WWE in 2025. Now, when he initially said it, he said that the Royal Rumble, Elimination Chamber, and WrestleMania 41 will be his last. But a lot of people took that to mean that he would, be having his last appearance at WrestleMania 41 and as a full-time competitor. And that doesn't necessarily appear to be the case because apparently at the post-show media scrum, he clarified a little bit more, talking about how he's got 30 to 40 dates he's kind of looking at here. And he said 2025 will be his last year competing in the company, but he didn't necessarily say WrestleMania 41 would be his last show. So he could be getting more matches in 2025 during his retirement tour than he has over the last few years in total. If he's decided to kind of put forth the effort here and kind of go on one final run. I know he's got a lot going on in Hollywood, and in particular, he was just recently filming Peacemaker season 2 for the DCU. So yeah, maybe he's got some time off and he just kind of wants to come back and kind of finish this part of his life up before he goes full time into Hollywood. If that's the case, I fully commend him. And especially for a guy who's hoping to go to the Royal Rumble this year, as it's coming to Indianapolis, Indiana, which is about an hour north of where I live. I'm looking forward to hopefully maybe seeing John Cena one final time before he finally hangs up the boots. But yeah, it sounds like it's going to be one of those deals where it's going to be a long time, maybe a year-long retirement tour, kind of like what Bryan Danielson is currently doing in AEW. And if that's the case, I'm definitely happy to see that. But at the same time, good to see him get at least one more WrestleMania. And he did not even rule out the fact of entering the Royal Rumble and potentially going on to win that and then challenging for the WWE Championship or the World Heavyweight Championship to become the 17-time champion and break the all-time record held by Ric Flair. We'll have to wait and see if he ends up doing that one. But there'd be a lot of fans who'd be okay with it. I know everybody in WWE loves to call him the greatest of all time, but I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a great superstar, great charisma, great character. But at the same, I don't know if I'd put him up there with the greatest of all time when it comes to wrestling. Again, no disrespect to John Cena, love John Cena, but at the same time, Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, just off the top of my head, in my opinion, were better wrestlers. But yes, love John Cena. Sad to see him hang it up after 22 years, which is insane. Granted, the last few years he's not done a whole lot in ring. He's wrestled a match here and there to kind of keep his streak alive of having a match, I think, every year for his entire career to some degree, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, looking forward to seeing his final run here. We'll see what they end up doing with it. I just hope WWE gives it the proper respect it deserves, and hopefully he'll go out on a high note. We had the World Heavyweight Championship match between Seth Rollins and heavyweight champion Damian Priest, where if Seth Rollins loses this match, he would no longer be allowed to challenge Damian Priest for the World Heavyweight Championship or the World Heavyweight Championship at all, as long as Damian Priest holds the title. And of course, if Damian Priest loses, he would have to leave the Judgment Day. That was the gentleman's agreement that was set up between these two gentlemen. And there's a point in this match which is kind of going to overshadow the rest of the match, which was not bad. It was a good match in my opinion. But after a Falcon Arrow, there was supposed to be a near fall. And apparently, Damian Priest, I don't know what happened here, if he just thought the music was going to hit for Drew McIntyre to bring in the cash in for the briefcase, or what was going on here. But Damian Priest did not kick out. It was a spot where the referee come down for 3, and he had to act like it was 2, but Damian Priest did not move. Seth Rollins won this match, if you're going to call it down the middle and based on what happens in the ring. But that was clearly not the plan. So, as Triple H said in the post-media scrum, it would be a shame if this whole thing was just marred by that one moment. And of course, Damian Priest gets a bad rep for it. Mistakes happen. It does happen. I want to give that to WWE here, even though, this is the biggest company in the world. It just goes to show that just because you're the biggest company in the world, things can still happen and go wrong in a moment. Maybe Damian Priest kind of got knocked a little loopy on the Falcon Arrow. I don't know, but whatever it was, it did not go well and it did not look good. And of course, the crowd booed it like crazy. I mean, and I understand that too, but it's just one of those things. This is a scripted sport. It is actually a television show. So, yes, it is made to look like actual sport, but at the same time, these things happen, unfortunately. But of course, that set up the Money in the Bank cash in for Drew McIntyre, obviously. So right after this pinfall that did not go well, Drew McIntyre's music hit, which led a lot of people to speculate that McIntyre's music was a little bit late. Maybe that's what it was supposed to be, and maybe that was supposed to break up the pinfall. I don't know. Drew McIntyre made his way down to the ring and he cashed in the briefcase, making this a triple threat match between Seth Rollins, Damian Priest, and Drew McIntyre for the World Heavyweight Championship here. That is when we got a return from CM Punk, who, after he cost Drew McIntyre his World Heavyweight Championship in Drew's home country of Scotland, and then Drew McIntyre went on to destroy CM Punk in Punk's hometown of Chicago. Now CM Punk returns here once again with this feud and cost Drew McIntyre the World Heavyweight Championship for the third time now in a matter of the last few months since WrestleMania here, nailing him with the steel chair, attacking him on the outside, absolutely destroying Drew McIntyre here. This was definitely one of the biggest pops of the night, no doubt about it. This feud is on fire. There's no doubt about it. These two guys are doing a great job of selling this feud, and Punk is just an absolute madman here. But yeah, this was really good. Outside of the fact that we've seen this now 3 times since WrestleMania, where CM Punk has cost Drew McIntyre the World Heavyweight Championship here. Now, that to be fair, this feud does not need the World Heavyweight title, so I'm perfectly fine with McIntyre or Punk not having the belt going into the match, potentially at SummerSlam, which is where I think it will take place. But yeah, this stuff was good. And of course, after CM Punk laid out Drew McIntyre with the belt, he sat on the announce table, just kind of watching as the rest of this unfolded here. And of course, it eventually led to Damian Priest getting the pinfall victory on Drew McIntyre, not Seth Rollins here. So Damian Priest retained his World Heavyweight Championship here, but that's going to cause a problem a little bit here because Seth Rollins is, of course, the stipulation was if Seth Rollins loses, he's not going to be able to challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship due to their gentleman's agreement. And so Seth Rollins took a little bit of exception to CM Punk, costing him the match, which again adds a whole nother wrinkle to this. If everybody remembers here, Seth Rollins versus CM Punk was supposed to be the scheduled match at WrestleMania 40 this year, but CM Punk got hurt at Royal Rumble, so that match ended up being called off and ended up being Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre. So yeah, this whole thing's got many storylines interweaving amongst themselves as well. I really enjoyed this little back and forth here. However, it kind of didn't end up holding the same weight as it did on this pay-per-view going into Monday Night Raw coming out of that show, because Monday Night Raw, they kind of did away with the gentleman's agreement just kind of out of nowhere. So it just kind of made like all this, well, all the animosity he has towards CM Punk, there's no big reason for it now other than the fact that CM Punk kind of cost him the match. But the stipulation's kind of been thrown out the window after Monday Night Raw. So it's just kind of like, I don't know if we necessarily needed to add that little wrinkle. I understand you may be trying to set up something with Punk and Rollins going down the line later on, maybe at WrestleMania next year. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, this stuff was pretty good, all things considered. I just kind of felt a little bummed out that they kind of reneged on the stipulation going into Monday Night Raw. We got the women's Money in the Bank ladder match up next. Not a great women's ladder match, in my opinion. There were botches all over this thing. But I thought the ending was very well done, in my opinion. Chelsea Green, what a trooper. She took a big bump, falling from the top of a ladder over the ring, onto tables, onto the floor. Took it very well. She did a great job of, doing what she needed to do to protect herself and keep her safe. At the same time, it was an absolutely great visual for sure. And of course, we got the winner here, Tiffany Stratton, becoming the Mrs. Money in the Bank, as it were. And so, yeah, she will be the one to hold the briefcase going forward. And WWE, ever since they brought her up from NXT, they've been very high on Tiffany Stratton. So good to see her to be able to continue to get her push moving forward here. And the fact that she has the briefcase will continue to push her as she kind of, waits it out, maybe going into Mania next year or sometime next year, holding this briefcase, continuing to get some wins. And then eventually she's going to cash in on Bayley or whoever holds the title over there on SmackDown, most likely. So, yeah, this could be a lot of fun for sure. And of course, with Trish Stratus being in the building, we actually had a little bit of an interaction between her and Tiffany Stratton. And it looked like we could potentially be getting a feud between Trish Stratus and Tiffany Stratton at some point. Could be interesting going forward. We'll have to see what they end up doing with that. Maybe at SummerSlam. Could be one of those deals. But yeah, definitely a lot of fun. And hopefully we'll see these two ladies hook it up sometime soon. And of course, the main event of the Money in the Bank PLE or pay-per-view was Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, and Randy Orton versus the New Bloodline, with Solo Sikoa getting the pinfall here over Cody Rhodes. So this is clearly being used to set up a potential one-on-one match between Solo Sikoa and Cody Rhodes for the WWE Championship over on SummerSlam. Of course, a lot of people need to remember, too, that Cody Rhodes was the first guy to pin Solo Sikoa and in his undefeated streak on the main roster. So they kind of tied into that just a little bit there for sure. Obviously, it's good to see the New Bloodline continued their momentum going forward after they recently put Paul Heyman through a table. because of course this is going to lead to Roman Reigns returning eventually with the Wise Man to potentially set up a feud between the two Bloodline factions, which could be absolutely outstanding. We'll have to see how that goes with Jey Uso and Sami Zayn maybe potentially being involved since they're both on Monday Night Raw right now. And I'm not sure where Jimmy Uso will fit into that once he comes back from injury. But yeah, this could be very well be great storytelling coming into Survivor Series, in my opinion, later this fall. But for this here, I thought it was good to kind of further the feud with Cody Rhodes and the Bloodline as this could end up being something going down the line with Rock and Cody Rhodes. This could be revealed eventually that the Rock is the one kind of pulling the strings behind Solo Sikoa. We'll have to see if that's where they go with it. But you got to figure it's going to kind of play into it somehow with the promise that they gave us of the Rock and Cody Rhodes eventually locking horns, potentially at Royal Rumble next year. We'll have to wait and see where they end up doing that. But that's kind of where I'm thinking it's going to be at this point with everything they got planned for SummerSlam and possibly Survivor Series at War Games. Yeah, and maybe Survivor Series is where we get the return of The Rock to kind of set up that stuff moving into WrestleMania season and all that. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, this was absolutely outstanding way to end the show, in my opinion. I'd also want to say a shout out quickly to Kevin Owens that he mentioned on SmackDown that his mother, I believe, was in the hospital or whatnot, and he was able to be at the shows because he said his mother would be supportive of him if he wasn't. So I just want to wish my good wishes to him and his family, and thoughts and prayers are with Kevin Owens. Moving into Monday Night Raw this week, CM Punk come out to start the show, basically talking about how actions have consequences. And of course, he said as long as he's around, Drew McIntyre will not hold the World Heavyweight Championship. And of course, Seth Rollins kind of took exception to this a little bit, of course, after costing him the match on Saturday night. Seth Rollins come out and said, when you were cleared, you will not even be able to say the name Drew McIntyre before I snap your arm and put you back on the shelf. So ever since CM Punk kind of came into WWE, that night he made that return at last year's Survivor Series, Seth Rollins was obviously the one most upset about it on camera. And of course, they're kind of playing into that here too. Again, maybe further, we may get this match eventually, even though we didn't get it at WrestleMania. We could get it at next year's WrestleMania. We'll have to wait and see. Yeah, this is good stuff between the two guys, no doubt about it here. And Seth Rollins playing into the fact that Punk mentioned that actions have consequences. It makes sense to kind of further that along the lines here too. But again, takes a little bit of sting out of it by the end of the show when they basically threw the gentleman's agreement out between Damian Priest and Seth Rollins. That does not mean that Seth Rollins should not have problem with CM Punk, because CM Punk did cost him the match. Seth Rollins could be the World Heavyweight Champion right now. So that is still kind of there. But like I said, it just took a little bit of the sting out of it for me, but that's okay, I guess. But at the same time, just kind of wish they wouldn't have done that. Following this, we had Jey Uso versus Chad Gable. Jey Uso gets a win over Chad Gable here after hitting a spear on Chad Gable's injured ribs following the ladder match on Saturday, which is another guy I thought could have done a lot of good holding the briefcase, but it may be just a little too early for Chad Gable yet. He's still got a ways to go before he gets to that level, I think. But at the same time, Chad Gable is on his way, and I think they're going to do good things with him, especially when it comes to the Wyatt Six stuff after this match. The Wyatt Six kind of teased that they were coming after Chad Gable yet again. We got yet another appearance from Sister Abigail, or Nikki Cross at this point, kind of stalking Chad Gable once again. Interesting to me, too, is that every time the Wyatt Six start to show up and Jey Uso's around, Jey Uso hightails it out of there so fast. Jey Uso, booking himself well here, just getting out of Dodge, because he's openly said online that he has the lights and the whole yeet thing going on with his entrances. He said he's basically said the Wyatts can have the Fireflies. He don't want to get involved with this. So smart on Jey Uso to kind of get out of Dodge here. I love every time that happens, because obviously Jey Uso's around, all of a sudden he's just gone. So it's absolutely hilarious to watch. But yeah, Chad Gable continues to be stalked here. And of course, Bo Dallas or Uncle Howdy's talked about how families who've been betrayed, they're kind of going after people who've done that. And Chad Gable betrayed his family with the Alpha Academy a little bit. So it's kind of playing into the storyline there. So again, this is just pretty good writing, all things considered. Chad Gable gets out of Dodge here, but Sister Abigail once again leaves a VHS tape with this time Pat McAfee at ringside, which kind of frazzled him a little bit. So yeah, we get to talk about more about what that tape entailed a little bit later on. Bronson Reed got a much-deserved win over Pete Dunne here, following the Wyatt Six segment there with Chad Gable. And of course, it brought out Sheamus at the end of this match here, and Sheamus went to kind of, help out Pete Dunne. Of course, Pete Dunne wanted no help whatsoever. Pete Dunne shoving away his former Brawling Brutes teammate. Of course, Pete Dunne was renamed Butch under that stable, and maybe he's kind of holding some animosity towards Sheamus at some point. Either way, this feud here between these two guys could be, as Sheamus would say, a banger of a match for sure. So I'm hoping we'll see more of this. Of course, I guess it was announced on commentary that Tyler Bate has also been injured. He'll be out for some time. So it looks like Pete Dunne will be getting a bit of a singles run here. So again, yes, hopefully we'll see this here between Sheamus and Pete Dunne going down the line here. And like I said, it was great to see Bronson Reed get a nice win here to kind of further him after he took a loss recently as well. So he needs to continue to build upon his momentum as well. So it's good to see that not everybody's just getting buried. You can take losses here and there, but as long as you continue to push them and push them, I think it's only going to be a good thing for some of these talents. And I think WWE's finally figured that out under Triple H's leadership and creative. As I mentioned previously in the show here, we had a segment backstage where Seth Rollins approached Damian Priest, and Damian Priest says the gentleman's agreement is out the window. If Seth Rollins wants a title shot against him after SummerSlam, he can have it. Now, Damian Priest has got to get through Gunther at SummerSlam. That's going to be the key there because Gunther is waiting in the wings for the title match against Damian Priest, which I speculated, and we talked about this on the podcast as well, that Seth Rollins and Gunther might have been the more marquee matchup at SummerSlam. However, WWE is doing, I believe, is the right thing and giving that faith in Damian Priest that they believe he's earned, and a lot of fans feel the same way. I still personally feel like Damian Priest has got a little bit more to go before he's kind of considered like that top tier level in WWE. But at the same time, he's doing a pretty decent job with his World Heavyweight Championship run. His personality is doing a lot better. And not only that, this whole thing with the gentleman's agreement, while I did not really care for the fact that he's kind of reneged on it, it does kind of lead a little bit more into Damian Priest's babyface turn. A babyface would do exactly what Damian Priest here did and be a fighting champion and would actually say, you know what? I know we made that agreement, but you kind of got screwed over by CM Punk. So, you know what? If you want another shot, I'm going to give it to you. So, in that regard, I understand how it makes 100% sense. But like I said, it just kind of took a little bit of the wind out of its sails for me, other than that. But I see what they're going for here. So, I'm not going to nitpick it too much. But I guess at the time, it was just kind of like, really? But whatever. It's just what they're doing here. But yeah, good to see. But we'll see if that ends up happening or if Gunther takes the World Heavyweight Championship and Seth Rollins has a whole new different mountain to climb. We'll have to wait and see. And of course, Seth Rollins and Punk could become a thing too. I don't know where they're going to take Gunther if he wins the world championship here. I don't see a world where Gunther doesn't win that title. So I imagine Damian Priest will drop that title and maybe he'll get a babyface chase, which is a lot of times the best thing for a babyface to go after a heel champion. So we could definitely see that too. Maybe he has to go after the title he lost at SummerSlam, and maybe Finn Balor cost Priest the championship at SummerSlam. I could definitely see that happening. And the Judgment Day finally splitting. I thought they were going to split at Money in the Bank. Didn't end up happening. So there's been a few times this week I've been wrong in professional wrestling, especially when it comes to AEW. And I'm gonna flat up own up to it here on the channel when it does happen. Yeah, I like that they're keeping me on my toes, and they're definitely doing some stuff that's unexpected and unpredictable. So that's always a good thing. Of course, the segment with Seth Rollins ended in the back. Seth Rollins walked off, and Damian Priest got a phone call, and apparently he said, "Where are you at?" Which was apparently Rhea Ripley, which we're going to get into here a little bit too. So yeah, Damian Priest obviously knew what was about to happen here, and he got a little bit of a smile on his face, which could lead down into some storylines coming up soon too as well. Speaking of wrestlers who taken a loss, I didn't mention it a while ago, but Sami Zayn versus Braun Breaker at Money in the Bank. Sami Zayn retained his championship at that show, defeating Braun Breaker in a well fought victory. In my opinion, it was one of the best matches on the card on Money in the Bank. So I apologize I didn't mention it earlier. Yeah, so it definitely showed that both these talents are big time superstars in the company and could definitely go. And of course, Sami Zayn's talking about how he's not just a fighter, but he is a champion. And Braun Breaker come out and pretty much destroyed Sami Zayn. So once again, even though Braun Breaker took the loss here, he come out and laid him out with a big spear as Ilya Dragunov come out to kind of make the save for Sami Zayn and to set up a match with Ilya Dragunov and Braun Breaker later on in the show. So yeah, this is going to continue in my opinion. We could even get more men involved in the Intercontinental Championship title picture here heading into SummerSlam. Maybe Ilya Dragunov gets added to that as well. I mean, Sheamus is right there. I mean, you could add Pete Dunne. I mean, this whole thing could boil over into a multi-man match coming up at SummerSlam potentially. Or we could just get a more on the one-on-one stuff between Sami Zayn and Braun Breaker, kind of getting more personal as we go on here. So that could be great too. So just have to see where this goes. But I thought this was a good segment just to kind of again show Braun Breaker as the killer, because everybody was saying after Money in the Bank, well, Braun Breaker just got buried. Guys, just because you lose here and there does not mean you're being buried. You can still be rehabbed and still be presented in a way which will continue to further your push that Braun Breaker is clearly going to be getting here. He's multi-talented. He's really good in the ring. He's pretty good on a microphone. He sounds just like his Uncle Scott, no doubt about it. But he looks like Rick, his dad, and he looks like his Uncle Scott Steiner, Big Papa Pump. So yeah, and of course he keeps getting bigger and bigger. He's going to look more and more like Papa Pump the more we go along here. But yeah, so yeah, I think this could be great. Can't wait to see where this goes, and hopefully we'll get more between Sami Zayn and Braun Breaker coming up down the line here. Bo Dallas again conversed with Uncle Howdy in an internal dialogue videotaped for the entire world to see. At the end of the back and forth, Dallas uttered an ominous, "Then sick is what we will be." You couple all this with the excellent video with a clearly tormented Bo Dallas waiting for Raw General Manager Adam Pearce. And this was excellent stuff that continues to gradually progress the group's story here. I'd like to see a little bit more from this group, but at the same time, this is a slow build. So I'm not going to, nitpick it too much here. However, 3 weeks now in a row of just new videos, I'd like to see them maybe do a little bit more with the group, getting more of the other members involved besides just Sister Abigail and Bo Dallas. But now that we've got this intriguing element here of him showing up in Adam Pierce's locker room here, wanting to talk to the general manager of Monday Night Raw, that has me intrigued. So I think we're going to finally start to get a little bit further in here. But it's only been a few weeks, so I think we need to just be a little more patient here, and I think we'll be okay going forward. And I think this feud is going to end up being good with Chad Gable probably going against Uncle Howdy at SummerSlam, and then after that, we'll see what they go with it and where they end up taking the Wyatt Six. But either way, I have more faith in this with Triple H and the creative more than I did for Vince McMahon and Bray Wyatt, unfortunately, who sadly passed away and was unable to realize his full potential and vision with the company due to the fact that Vince McMahon didn't book it very well. But yeah, good to see this going down the line here. I think it's going to be good. As set up earlier in the show, we had a hard-hitting match between Ilya Dragunov and Braun Breaker here. The second-generation star of Braun Breaker halted Dragunov's momentum by throwing an office chair at him, drawing a disqualification. So Ilya Dragunov technically gets the win here. After the bell, he attempted to beat down Ilya Dragunov, but Sami Zayn made the save, kind of, repaying the favor that Ilya Dragunov gave to him earlier. Still hobbled by the spear from earlier in the night, the Intercontinental Champion left himself open, and Braun Breaker pounced, pulling him from the ring, throwing him into the ring post and sending him crashing over the announce table. So yeah, this definitely accomplished two things. It kept Braun Breaker and the Sami Zayn rivalry alive, but also provided for another non-finish between Breaker and Dragunov, giving neither man the definitive upper hand here between the two guys. Instead, it left the outcome unsettled. So yeah, we could definitely be seeing potentially a triple threat match going into SummerSlam. But like I said, you could definitely add in Sheamus or somebody else. You could definitely make them maybe Bronson Reed. There could be all sorts of guys you could do with this. But yeah, this is the Intercontinental Championship is back to a prominent level now where we're getting strong workhorsemen wrestlers carrying this title and making it more prestigious than it has been under the previous McMahon administration here, or the regime, as you call it, and when it comes to creative. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to this. Yeah, like I said, good that they did not completely give us a winner between Breaker and Dragunov, in my opinion. So we'll see where this all goes. Like I said, it sounds like we're going to get a banger of a wrestling match at SummerSlam for the Intercontinental Championship. So I can't wait to see where that goes. We got a match between Lyra Valkyria, Caden Carter, and Katana Chance versus Damage Control. Damage Control gets the win here, but what the big story was after the match, the trio of Zoe Stark, Shayna Baszler, and Sonya Deville beat down Damage Control and stood tall to close out the segment, sending a message that there's a new dominant trio in the women's division. So yeah, we've definitely seen hints and teases of a new union between these three in the backstage segments and in the background of other vignettes. Monday night marked their first actual appearance as a united front. If nothing else, it should make for some fun matchups in the coming weeks. So yeah, looks like we're finally going to get Damage Control kind of on their back foot a little bit here. They've kind of been a little bit off since WrestleMania and the Bailey feud, but now we're going to be getting into some more stuff here storyline wise that could hopefully bring back Damage Control back to prominence a little bit here. And obviously it's good to see Sonya Deville back on television as well, with these two women that are hopefully going to be pushing to greater heights as well, especially Zoe Stark coming up from NXT. So, and I'm sure Lyra Valkyria will still be highlighted here as well, as the company's very high on her. We'll just have to wait and see what they end up doing with Caden Carter and Katana Chance in the women's division, especially since Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill have already reiterated that they want to go after the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships that is currently being held by Isla Dawn and Alba Fire. So we'll potentially be seeing that coming up down the line here too, maybe at SummerSlam. But yeah, a lot of potential here in the women's division. AEW and WWE have both got great women's divisions right now, and I can't wait to see where they take all these lovely young ladies here. They're doing a lot of great storytelling with the women's division on both shows. So if you're not checking that out, I highly recommend that you do. Obviously, the biggest stuff going on Monday Night Raw as of late has been Liv Morgan and Dominik Mysterio. This segment was absolutely hilarious, in my opinion. Liv Morgan wanted to help out Dominik Mysterio, and she wanted to go over some moves before their tag team match later on tonight against Rey Mysterio and Zelina Vega. And of course, Dominik Mysterio is acting like he doesn't want anything to do with it. He's a little like, what are you doing here? And of course, Liv Morgan starts to, loosen up Dominik Mysterio. She grabs a hold of his leg and starts loosening up his quad a little bit. And at first, Dominik Mysterio looks like he didn't want anything to do with it. Then he kind of looked around like, oh, this isn't that bad. It feels pretty good. And of course, you got Finn Balor and JD McDonough who popped their heads around the corner, which absolutely, popped me there. And Damian Priest and of course Carlito walk up as well. And Damian Priest, kind of breaks it up a little bit here. It was like, yo, I don't even want to know what that was. As Liv Morgan's like, I'll see you later, Dom. And, it kind of led to this funny segment here where Carlito goes, whoa, that's not cool. Or, and then I guess Damian Priest is like, man, this is not that hard to do this. Like, I don't know what's going on with you. And Carlito's like, I don't know, man. It looks pretty hard, pointing down to Dominic Mysterio's crotch. So this is kind of like Triple H type humor from back in the days of DX, with the heads popping around the corner and all this sort of a little bit of toilet humor. But this sounds to me a little bit like where we could potentially be taking Monday Night Raw once it goes to Netflix in January. It could delve away a little bit from the PG era and get a little bit more edgy as it once was, especially since it's on Netflix and it's not on cable anymore. SmackDown will still be on USA, but they can still do a little bit more on USA than they can do on Fox right now. However, I think WWE definitely needs to have a conversation with USA and Fox in particular, especially Fox, about bleeping out words and crowd chants and things like that. It really ruins the show, but that's another story altogether. But yeah, this was absolutely outstanding. Led to some good, hilarious comedy, in my opinion. So yeah, but this is definitely leading to Dominic Mysterio, I think, splitting from the Judgment Day as well, as I think it's going to eventually be revealed that Dominic Mysterio and Liv Morgan are in this together. If you can't see that coming down the line here, but that's going to be a great reveal when it does happen. Right now, it looks like Dominic is still trying to play a little coy here, but by the end of the night, it looks like kind of starts to kind of fall for Liv just a little bit, but we'll get to that in the main event spot here. But yeah, the main event was, like I said, Dominic Mysterio and Liv Morgan versus Rey Mysterio and Zelina Vega here. And with the help of Liv Morgan, Dominic Mysterio was able to beat and pin his father, Rey Mysterio. So you can kind of see here how they're writing this with Dominic Mysterio kind of slowly, maybe kind of coming around to Liv Morgan a little bit here, just like Finn Balor has a little bit. So could that cause a little bit of friction between Finn and Dominic? We'll have to wait and see, because obviously we've seen, Liv Morgan with Finn Balor as well. So this could definitely explode Judgment Day all the way around here. We'll have to see how the Rhea Ripley element takes effect here once she's back. Now, like I said, after the match, they start to celebrate a little bit here. Liv Morgan jumps on Dom, pulls him down, and they kind of have a moment where they go forehead to forehead. Looks like they're about to kiss each other when Rhea Ripley's music hit, which brings out Mami, and Mami is pissed. As for weeks that Dominic Mysterio has been saying that he's been talking to Rhea, and Rhea's cool, but even Damian Priest is like, no, I just talked to her. She's angry, dude. She's not happy at all. Well, Mami comes out and runs off Liv Morgan, and she confronts Dominic Mysterio, basically letting him know she is none too thrilled with all this. She is none too happy. So yeah, looks like Dominic's going to be taken to the woodshed here. But yeah, we'll definitely have to see where Mrs. Buddy Matthews finally what she ends up doing here to Dominic Mysterio moving forward here, as she is now back from her hopefully from her injury, as well as her honeymoon with Buddy Matthews from AEW. So yeah, we'll see what happens here with this whole storyline here. But yeah, Monday Night Raw went off the air with Rhea Ripley walking away as Dominic was trying to explain himself, but Mami had wanted nothing to do with it here. And of course, after Raw went off the air, we got this little video online of Liv Morgan after she ran away and kind of ducked behind this curtain. She was watching from the backstage area into the ring area as to what Mami was saying to Dominic, and she kind of turns around and just kind of smiles like she had this planned all along. So could she be potentially stringing Dominic along? I still think it's more of a Dominic and Liv Morgan are working together, and they've been a thing for a while now, ever since Mami left, so to speak. But maybe Liv Morgan's just kind of stringing Dominic along and is just kind of, playing mind games and just wanting to destroy everything that Rhea Ripley had from the Women's World Championship all the way down to the Judgment Day as a whole. We'll just have to wait and see where this goes. But I'm excited for this. I think WWE is doing a really good job with their storytelling as late. If you've not been watching them since WrestleMania or even before, now's the time to get on it with WWE, because WWE, ever since Triple H has taken over as head booker and head creative over there, it's been improved a lot. It's not perfect. They have their issues here and there, but usually this time of the year during the summer is usually when they kind of slack off, and they've not been doing that lately. So you got to give WWE props for that, especially going into Money in the Bank now, SummerSlam. And if they continue that momentum between SummerSlam and Royal Rumble and the Survivor Series in there, you can make that half of the year entertaining as well, especially with the NFL and football coming back. I think that would be a great thing, but we'll have to wait and see what they do. But what do you guys think? Are you guys excited for WWE? Are you guys excited for SummerSlam coming up here in just about a month's time, if I'm not mistaken? Comment below, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And until my next video, guys, take care. God bless.